shadows and silence. Olivia Reed stifled a yawn as she squinted at the small print of yet another deposition transcript. The office had emptied hours ago, leaving her alone in the hushed stillness of Thornfield and Associates. The clock on her desk quietly marked 9:37 p.m., another late night that would likely stretch past midnight. She absently twisted a strand of her auburn hair, a habit she'd developed during these solitary evenings. As a junior paralegal, Olivia had quickly learned that advancement meant sacrifice, particularly of sleep and any semblance of a social life. 6 months into the job, she'd become intimately familiar with the night janitor's schedule and the peculiar creaks of the old building after dark. Olivia reached for her lukewarm coffee, grimacing at the bitter taste. From down the hallway came the soft click of a door. She straightened instinctively, knowing exactly who it was. Harrison Wells, the firm's youngest partner at 38, was notorious for his brilliant legal mind and equally infamous for his aloofness. "Still here, Ms. Reed?" His voice carried from the doorway of her small office, startling her despite her awareness of his presence. "Just finishing the Westmoreland depositions." "Mr. Wells," she replied, gesturing to the stack of papers before her. Harrison nodded, his expression unreadable as always. Tall and impeccably dressed even at this hour, he maintained a careful distance from everyone at the firm. Dark circles beneath his eyes hinted at his own sleepless nights, though rumors suggested they were spent in solitude rather than companionship. "Don't stay too late," he said, the words more command than concern. Before she could respond, he was gone, footsteps fading down the corridor. Olivia exhaled slowly. Every interaction with Harrison left her feeling as though she'd failed some unspoken test. She'd been assigned to his team 3 months ago, and despite her best efforts, had yet to earn more than a curt nod of approval. The rain began sometime after 10, gentle at first, then strengthening to a steady drumbeat against the windows. Olivia found herself drawn to the glass, watching rivulets trace patterns in the darkness. Below, the city lights blurred into watercolor smudges. She often wondered about Harrison during these quiet moments. The office whispered about his past, a fiancé who died suddenly 4 years ago, his subsequent retreat into work, the walls he'd built around himself. Olivia didn't indulge in gossip, but she couldn't help noticing how he seemed most at peace in the empty office, as though the silence offered something the daylight couldn't. By 11, her eyes burned from fatigue. The Westmoreland case notes had begun to swim before her, sentences blurring together. Deciding she'd reached her limit, Olivia began gathering her things, slipping her laptop into her bag and sorting files for tomorrow. The storm had intensified, rain lashing against the windows with renewed vigor. Olivia sighed, regretting her decision to leave her umbrella at home this morning when the sky had been deceptively clear. She flicked off her desk lamp, plunging her small office into darkness. The hallway lights cast long shadows as she made her way toward the elevator. Passing Harrison's office, she paused. Light still spilled from beneath his door, a thin golden line in the dimness. Olivia hesitated, hand half raised to knock. What would she say? That she worried about the shadows in his eyes. That sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, she caught glimpses of a profound loneliness that mirrored her own. Her hand fell back to her side. There were boundaries one didn't cross, especially with someone like Harrison Wells. Whatever demons kept him working until dawn were his alone to face. As the elevator doors closed before her, Olivia didn't notice the door to Harrison's office opening, or the way he watched her departure, his customary mask of indifference momentarily slipping to reveal something softer, more vulnerable, and infinitely more complex. The call that changed everything, Olivia's apartment welcomed her with familiar emptiness as rain continued its assault on her windows. After a quick shower, she settled on her couch with case files and a fresh cup of tea, determined to review the Westmoreland documents once more before bed. The storm had intensified, occasional thunder punctuating the rhythm of raindrops. At precisely 12:07 a.m., her phone vibrated against the coffee table. The screen displayed Harrison Wells, Thornfield and Associates. Olivia's heart stuttered. In 6 months, He had never once called her after hours. "Hello?" she answered, trying to sound professional despite the late hour. Silence greeted her, then a soft exhale. "Ms. Reed." Harrison's voice sounded different, stripped of its usual clinical precision. "I apologize for disturbing you so late." "It's no problem, Mr. Wells. I was reviewing the Westmoreland files anyway." She waited for instructions about some forgotten document or overlooked detail. Instead, what came was unexpected. "I saw your light go out at the office. I wanted to ensure you made it home safely. The storm is rather severe." Olivia blinked in surprise. "I'm home, yes. Thank you for checking." Another pause, longer this time. She could hear rain in the background of his call, as though he were standing near a window. "Good. That's good." Something in his voice made her ask, "Are you still at the office, Mr. Wells?" "Harrison," he corrected softly. "And yes, I often am at this hour." "Why?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. The silence that followed was so long she thought he might have hung up. Then, "The emptiness here is honest. No pretense, no performance." His voice had dropped to almost a whisper. "The day is for masks, Ms. Reed. Night is for truth." "Olivia," she offered, "if I'm calling you Harrison—" A sound escaped him, not quite a laugh, more like surprise. "Olivia, then." Thunder crashed outside, and through the phone, she heard its echo from his end. "You should go home too, Harrison. The storm's getting worse." "I find storms comforting," he admitted. "They match the noise inside my head." The vulnerability in his admission stole her breath. This was not the Harrison Wells who strode through the office with cold precision. This was someone else entirely. "What noise?" she asked gently. "Regrets, questions, things I should have said and done, things I shouldn't have." His voice had a raw quality she'd never heard before. "Do you ever feel like you're living in the shadow of choices you didn't even realize you were making?" "Every day," she confessed, pulling her knees to her chest. "I thought as much," he said, and she could almost hear a smile. "I've noticed you, Olivia. Your dedication, your kindness, the way you stay late not just to impress, but because you genuinely care about doing things properly." Her cheeks warmed at his unexpected praise. "I've noticed you too," she admitted. "The way you throw yourself into your cases like they're lifelines." "Perhaps they are." Another pause. "I lost someone 4 years ago." "I'd heard," she said softly. "I'm sorry." Caroline was everything I wasn't. Spontaneous, joyful. She taught art to elementary school children. His voice cracked slightly. "Brain aneurysm, no warning. One moment planning our wedding, the next planning her funeral." Olivia closed her eyes, feeling his pain across the distance. "That's why you stay late. The empty office." "It feels less empty than my home," he confirmed. "Less filled with ghosts." "Tell me about her," Olivia said, settling deeper into her couch. "Tell me about Caroline." And remarkably, he did. For nearly 3 hours, Harrison spoke of the woman he'd loved, her laugh, her terrible cooking, her collection of vintage snow globes. He described their first date at a museum cafe, how she'd spilled coffee on his suit and then offered him her scarf to clean it, leaving a bright orange streak across his tie that he'd kept as a souvenir. In turn, Olivia shared her own stories. Her move to the city after her father's death, her mother's struggle with early-onset dementia, her dreams of eventually becoming an attorney who helped families navigate end-of-life care with dignity. By the time they fell silent, the storm had passed, leaving only gentle rain in its wake. The first hints of dawn lightened the sky outside Olivia's window. "It's almost morning," she said, surprised at how quickly the hours had vanished. "So it is." Harrison's voice had transformed through their conversation, becoming warmer, more human. I should let you rest before work. Will things be different tomorrow? She asked, suddenly afraid of returning to their previous dynamic. A pause. Yes, he said finally. And no. There are still professional boundaries, Olivia. Of course, she said quickly. I understand. But perhaps, he added thoughtfully, we might find a middle ground between day and night, between masks and truth. As they said their goodbyes, Olivia knew something fundamental had shifted between them. What that meant for tomorrow, she couldn't say, but for the first time since joining Thornfield and Associates, she found herself eager to find out. Daylight revelations, Olivia arrived at the office bleary-eyed but strangely energized. Despite only 3 hours of sleep, her mind buzzed with the echoes of last night's conversation. She'd seen beneath Harrison's carefully constructed facade, glimpsed the man behind the partner's title. Now she wondered which version of him would greet her in the harsh fluorescence of the office. Her answer came at precisely 9:15 a.m. when Harrison appeared at her doorway, 2 coffee cups in hand. His expression remained professionally neutral, but something in his eyes had changed. A subtle warmth that hadn't been there before. Good morning. Ms. Reed, he said, loud enough for passing colleagues to hear as he placed 1 cup on her desk. Then, leaning slightly closer, he added in a lower voice, Black with 1 sugar, correct? You mentioned it last night. Olivia nodded, surprised he'd remembered such a small detail. Thank you, Mr. Wells. A ghost of a smile touched his lips before he straightened. The Westmoreland deposition summaries. My office by noon? Of course. As he turned to leave, Fiona Palmer, another paralegal, raised an eyebrow at Olivia from across the hall. The firm's rumor mill would be working overtime by lunch. Harrison Wells didn't bring coffee to anyone, least of all junior paralegals. Throughout the morning, Olivia caught herself looking for him, wondering if their midnight confessions had been a dream. The Westmoreland summaries provided the perfect excuse to seek him out. At noon, she knocked on his office door. Enter, came his voice, crisp and professional. Harrison sat behind his imposing desk, surrounded by law books and case files. Sunlight streamed through the windows, highlighting the silver at his temples that made him appear older than his 38 years. The deposition summaries, she said, placing the folder before him. He glanced up, and for a moment, the mask slipped. His eyes softened as they met hers. Thank you, Olivia. The use of her first name sent a small thrill through her. You're welcome, Harrison. He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. Close the door and sit, please. I'd like to discuss the Westmoreland strategy. For the next hour, they reviewed the case. Their professional discussion occasionally punctuated by personal asides, small acknowledgments of their late-night confidences. With each shared glance, each momentary break in formality, Olivia felt the walls between them thinning. You have exceptional insight, Harrison noted as they finished. You see connections others might miss. I care about these cases, she replied. About the people behind the paperwork. Like your mother, he said softly. That's why you're drawn to elder care law. The reference to their personal conversation made her breath catch. Yes, exactly. As days passed, they established a new rhythm, professionally appropriate during daylight hours, but with small gestures that spoke volumes. A coffee left on her desk, a book of poetry he thought she might enjoy, brief conversations in empty hallways where the formal Ms. Reed and Mr. Wells gave way to Olivia and Harrison. At night, occasional text messages evolved into phone calls where they continued sharing pieces of themselves. Harrison spoke of his childhood in a small coastal town, his father's fishing boat, his mother's struggle with depression. Olivia told him about her college years, her volunteer work at hospice centers, her dream of creating a nonprofit for families navigating dementia care. 2 weeks after that first midnight call, Harrison invited her to dinner, not at some expensive restaurant where they might be seen by colleagues, but at a small bistro in a quiet neighborhood far from the firm. Is this wise? Olivia asked as they settled at a corner table. Harrison considered her question seriously. Probably not, he admitted. There are complications. The age difference, The power dynamics at work. I'm not asking for promises, she said, or definitions. I just want to understand what we're doing. He reached across the table, his fingers lightly touching hers. I've spent 4 years living in the past, Olivia. For the first time, I find myself thinking about the future. Before she could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID displayed Thornfield and Associates. Urgent. Harrison frowned. I should take this. As he stepped away to answer, Olivia watched him transform back into the attorney, shoulders straightening, voice sharpening. Whatever the call contained, she could see it was serious. When he returned, his expression had hardened. There's been a development with the Westmoreland case. Documents missing. Accusations of impropriety. What kind of accusations? His eyes met hers, troubled. The kind that could destroy careers, including yours potentially, mine. But I've only been handling basic documentation, and someone is suggesting files were deliberately misplaced. Your name has been mentioned. His voice grew quieter. And there are suggestions that our friendship might be connected. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. That's absurd. Nevertheless, Harrison's professional mask had fully returned. We need to return to the office immediately. It seems our middle ground between day and night has been noticed and weaponized. As they left the restaurant, Olivia felt the tentative bridge they'd built between them begin to crumble beneath the weight of office politics and professional consequences. Whatever storm awaited at Thornfield and Associates threatened not just their growing connection, but their very careers. Storms and shelter the following week unfolded like a carefully orchestrated nightmare. The missing Westmoreland documents, crucial evidence proving their client's innocence, had mysteriously vanished from the firm's secure file room. Their disappearance conveniently coincided with settlement discussions, placing Thornfield and Associates in a precarious position. Whispers followed Olivia through the office corridors. As the last person logged into the file room before the document's disappearance, suspicion fell heavily on her shoulders. The firm's managing partner, Victoria Thornfield, had called her in for 3 separate interviews, each more grueling than the last. Your proximity to this case is troubling. Ms. Reed, Victoria had said during their most recent meeting, her steel-gray hair pulled into a severe bun. As is your developing relationship with Mr. Wells. Harrison had maintained his professional distance publicly, though his eyes conveyed silent support whenever they passed in the hallways. Their late-night calls had ceased entirely, too dangerous with the investigation ongoing. On Friday afternoon, Olivia sat alone in the firm's small break room, pushing a salad around her plate without appetite, when Fiona Palmer slid into the chair opposite her. "They're going to fire you," Fiona said without preamble, voice barely above a whisper. Board meeting on Monday. They need a scapegoat, and the junior paralegal sleeping with the partner is the perfect candidate. Olivia's fork clattered against her plate. I'm not sleeping with anyone, Fiona shrugged. Doesn't matter what's true. Matters what they can make stick. She leaned closer. But here's what's interesting. I saw Jared Westmoreland himself in Victoria's office yesterday. Very cozy conversation for opposing counsel. What are you suggesting? Connect the dots, Olivia. Westmoreland Industrial stands to lose millions if those documents surface. Victoria's retirement was announced for next year, but her portfolio took a massive hit in the market crash. She needs a cushy landing spot. Before Olivia could respond, Fiona stood. Check the backup server logs. Victoria accessed them the night before the documents disappeared. I'm telling you this because what they're doing to you is wrong, but I never said a word. That evening, Olivia stayed late, her desk lamp once again the only light in the darkened office. The backup server logs required partner-level clearance, but she'd noticed Harrison's password months ago when he'd logged in while she was in his office. She'd never dreamed of using it, until now. The elevator dinged softly, interrupting her search. Footsteps approached, too heavy to be the night janitor. What are you doing, Olivia? She jumped at Harrison's voice, quickly minimizing the screen. Research. He closed her office door and lowered his voice. On Victoria Thornfield's server access? That's not research. That's career suicide. How did you... Because I've been doing the same thing from home. He ran a hand through his hair, disheveled from a long day. This goes deeper than missing documents. Victoria's been meeting with Westmoreland executives for months. There's a board position waiting for her if this case settles favorably. Olivia felt sick. She's sabotaging her own firm's case? And using you as the fall person. Harrison's expression darkened. I won't let that happen. What can we do? It's her word against mine, and she's the managing partner. Harrison hesitated. There's something I haven't told you. About Caroline. Olivia blinked at the sudden change of subject. Your fiancé? She didn't just teach art. She was an investigative journalist. Her specialty was corporate corruption. His voice grew softer. The aneurysm story was simpler than explaining she died in a car accident while following a lead on Westmoreland Industrial's waste disposal practices. Olivia stared at him, pieces clicking into place. You took this case because of her. I've been building it for 4 years. The documents that disappeared? They're not originals. They're copies. The originals are in a safe deposit box Caroline set up before she died. His eyes met Olivia's. I couldn't tell you, couldn't risk anyone knowing. But now, they're going to destroy my career to protect themselves, she finished. Not if we move first. Harrison pulled a flash drive from his pocket. Everything's here. Victoria's communications with Westmoreland, the original documents, Caroline's research. But using it means exposing everything, including whatever is developing between us. Olivia took a deep breath. Then we do it together. The storm broke Monday morning when Harrison walked into the board meeting where Olivia's termination was to be announced. Instead of taking his seat, he connected his laptop to the projector and presented evidence of Victoria's collusion with Westmoreland Industrial. The board's stunned silence gave way to chaotic accusations and denials. By evening, Victoria had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation, and Olivia found herself sitting beside Harrison on a bench in the small park across from their office building. What happens now? She asked, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Harrison's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Professionally, Westmoreland will settle. Victoria will likely resign. The firm will implement new oversight procedures. And personally, he turned to face her, vulnerability clear in his eyes. That depends on you. I've been living in shadows for 4 years, Olivia. You've shown me there can be light again. As the city lights began to flicker on around them, Olivia leaned her head against his shoulder. They had weathered the storm together and found shelter in each other. Whatever came next, they would face it the same way. New beginnings. 1 year later, Olivia stood before the frosted glass door of Reed & Wells legal advocates, tracing the lettering with her fingertips. Even after 3 months in their new offices, seeing her name alongside Harrison's still sent a thrill through her. Are you going to stand there admiring our sign all day, or are we actually opening the office? Harrison's voice carried from inside, warm with affection. Olivia pushed the door open, smiling as she entered the sunlit reception area. Their boutique firm occupied the top floor of a renovated brownstone, worlds away from the steel and glass fortress of Thornfield and Associates. Just appreciating how far we've come, she replied, accepting the coffee he offered. The aftermath of the Westmoreland scandal had reshaped both their lives. Victoria Thornfield had resigned in disgrace when the evidence of her collusion became impossible to deny. The case had settled for a record amount, with provisions requiring Westmoreland Industrial to clean up the contaminated sites linked to Caroline's original investigation. Harrison and Olivia had both resigned from the firm shortly after, their relationship now acknowledged openly. The professional consequences had been significant. Whispers about impropriety followed them through legal circles, and several potential clients had been reluctant to work with them initially. But they had persevered, founding a practice dedicated to elder law and corporate accountability, an unusual combination that reflected both their passions. Harrison handled the complex litigation against corporations, while Olivia, now in her final year of law school after Harrison had encouraged her to pursue her dream, focused on developing their elder care practice. The Hathaway family is coming in at 10, Harrison reminded her, following her into her office. Their mother's care facility is trying to evict her despite their contract. Olivia nodded, setting down her bag. I reviewed their documentation last night. We have solid grounds for an injunction. Harrison leaned against her doorframe, watching her with a softness that still made her heart race. The past year had gradually erased the shadows from his eyes, though she knew he would always carry Caroline with him in some form. "I had dinner with Fiona last night," Olivia said, organizing files on her desk. "She's considering joining us. Says Thornfield has lost its soul since the new management took over." "We could use another paralegal," Harrison agreed, "especially one who was willing to risk her position to help expose corruption." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Natalie, their receptionist and office manager, carrying a stack of mail. "Morning, bosses. Court notifications, client thank you cards, and—" She separated an elegant cream envelope. "This hand-delivered invitation to the Bar Association's annual dinner." Harrison took the envelope, his expression darkening slightly as he read the card inside. "Victoria Thornfield is receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award." "What?" Olivia stared at him in disbelief. "After everything that happened?" "Money and connections," Harrison said grimly. "Some people always land on their feet. Are we going?" Natalie asked. Harrison and Olivia exchanged glances, years of understanding passing between them in a single look. "Absolutely," Olivia said firmly. "With bells on?" Later that evening, after their last client had departed, Olivia found Harrison standing at his office window, gazing at the city below. She approached quietly, slipping her arms around his waist from behind. "Penny, for your thoughts?" He covered her hands with his. "I was thinking about midnight phone calls and rainy nights, about how the worst moments of our lives can sometimes lead us to the best." Olivia rested her cheek against his back. "Caroline would be proud of you, you know." "Of what you've built. Of how you've honored her work." Harrison turned in her embrace to face her. "Sometimes I wonder if she somehow orchestrated all of this. Sent you to me when I was lost in the dark." "I don't believe in fate," Olivia said softly. "But I do believe in finding light in unexpected places." He smiled, touching her cheek gently. "Speaking of unexpected things, I have something to ask you." Reaching into his pocket, Harrison withdrew a small velvet box. Unlike the nervous suitors of romantic cliches, his hand was steady as he opened it to reveal a ring. Not a traditional diamond, but a deep blue sapphire set in rose gold. "I'm not asking you to replace what I lost," he said, his voice low and certain. "I'm asking you to help me build something new, something that honors the past but isn't defined by it." Tears blurred Olivia's vision as she looked from the ring to the man before her, no longer the cold, distant attorney she'd first encountered, but someone who had learned to live again, to love again. "Yes," she whispered, watching as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "To new beginnings." Later, as they walked hand in hand through the city streets toward their favorite bistro, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From late nights in a silent office to building a life and practice together, they had transformed shadows into substance, pain into purpose. The midnight call that had changed everything hadn't been an ending at all, she realized. It had been the first word of a new story, one they were writing together page by page, day by day. As Harrison squeezed her hand, a silent acknowledgement of the thoughts he could now read so easily on her face, Olivia smiled up at the stars appearing in the twilight sky. The office lights behind them dimmed as businesses closed for the evening, but unlike before, the darkness held no loneliness, only the promise of what tomorrow might bring.